The Death of Superman was one of the most pointless movies I've ever seen. The worst part is that I knew that this was the reaction I was going to get. Now this movie, and I guess the original comic book that's based on, have a pretty questionable title. Though then again, even if the choice for this title completely removed the shock value that they could have had, I can't really say that just because I know he's going to die, it means that I can't get any emotional reaction out of watching it. Especially when I already knew that Superman at some point gets killed by Doomsday. Oh, I'm sorry, spoiler alert if for some reason you couldn't decipher for yourself that Superman dies. One way you could give meaning to his death is by having thematical implications that result from his death, and with this movie, I can't really say it's lacking that element. I mean, we witness how much of a symbol of hope Superman is and how everyone worships him. People love him and are appreciative of his selflessness and heroism. Unfortunately, these concepts, while very present in the movie, they're not all that impactful, but not necessarily because they're poorly explored. It's mostly because they're obvious and simple ideas. They are bare bone concepts that can't stand on their own if you're hoping for them to be impressive to me. More than a week ago, I saw an episode of My Hero Academia that had very similar themes and events, with the only exception being that Hiro Aka had a long list of episodes that added more weight to that specific episode, while The Death of Superman is only like an hour long. Who knows, maybe if I give a shit about the previous movies from the DC animated movie universe, I would be more emotionally invested, though then again, they had very little to do with Superman, so it doesn't really matter. The point I'm trying to make is that Superman's death didn't leave much of an impression on me, and the animation did not help in any way, but I'll get to that later. I guess if I had to blame something else, it would be the stakes. Not to say that the movie didn't have stakes, in fact that's objectively wrong. Doomsday is a fucking monster that was going around killing people and was strong enough to challenge Superman, one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe and I guess the versus debate community. However, it's because of Doomsday that the fight between him and Superman felt almost devoid of emotional stake, because Doomsday has no personality and characterization whatsoever. He's just a dangerous creature, but one without any ideological or thematical feud between Superman. Lex Luthor fit the role for that, but he was barely an antagonist. He wanted to both eliminate Superman and take the glory for Doomsday's defeat, but it was only practical with the latter. The real fight for Superman's life was between a characterless villain, and Clark's battle was really just for survival and protection, which is fine, but I feel like I could have got more from the movie if I could think about what Superman's victory and defeat would mean for his opponent, and vice versa. Of course, if your goal in watching this movie is just to see two powerful beings beating the living shit out of each other until they both die, then I guess this is your movie, but I'm not interested in watching a generally boring character fighting against someone with no character at all just for the sake of it. And as for everything that came before that, well, I'm also not really interested in watching romantic bullshit, which I have a couple of things to say about that. For starters, there's this thing called the Bechdel test, which challenges viewers to find a movie that features one or more scenes with at least two women and the conversation between them isn't just about men. And guess what? The Death of Superman failed. It was actually kind of fucking hilarious seeing a 2018 movie failing a test that was made during the 80s. Another funny thing I want to show you guys is this scene.
I'm Superman.
That's good, Clark. You got me.
Look at me.
Oh my God.
The lack of self-awareness is unbelievable. Now, I should probably make it clear that while I think Clark's disguise is super lazy, I'm actually not that salty on it, but with Lois Lane, I just can't excuse it. I can understand people who aren't close to Clark not realizing that he's Superman, since you would never expect a glasses-wearing, dorky-looking journalist to be a flying badass, but Lois not only meets Superman on a frequent basis, but she's dating Clark. At some point, she should have realized that they both look and sound the same. Yeah, I know it's a cliche criticism to give to Superman, but pointing that out doesn't make this scene any less unbelievable. It's still funny though.
Oh my God. This is insane. But it makes total sense.
I did also notice that there were discussions related to Clark's decision to hide his identity from Lois in order to protect her, and honestly I don't think this was very well explored. It was really just meant to bring conflict. It wasn't all that thought-provoking and broken down. If you want a good example of the exploration of this question, watch the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I know they get a lot of flack, but I think they handled this question well. Except for the ghost thing, it was stupid and they should have removed that. All they had to do was make them break up only once. Anyway, let's talk about the animation and how kind of dumb it is. Remember this review? If you haven't seen it, well, you should, because it explains my biggest issues with the animation in these types of DC animated movies that can be applied here. But I did receive an interesting comment from someone saying that it's a result of these movies trying their best not to be cartoony. And while I understand where he's coming from, especially because I myself appreciate their intention to not make those movies look cartoony, I don't think that should be at the cost of completely removing expressiveness, and this movie definitely suffered a major dip as a result of this issue. There were several scenes where some of the characters were having emotional breakdowns, ranging from mild to big, and those infamous lifeless facial expressions never failed to haunt me. I was also not a big fan of the movement. There were moments where the camera would pan to a certain direction and suddenly just stop and stay still for a few seconds before they would cut to the next shot. It's a good thing these movies have high-class keyframing, otherwise those scenes will look really awkward. Also, where exactly did Doomsday stab Superman in the chest? In this shot, I see no stabbing, but I guess here he kind of is? Is he? When was the impact? I don't see or hear anything. All I saw was a wave that could only be a result of Superman punching Doomsday in the face. The dialogue writing was kind of shitty. Every attempted joke falls flat, and there were some cheesy lines here and there that sounded pretty dumb. Especially that moment between Superman and Lois. That was high class writing.
I've got you.
You've got me. But who's got you?
You need to call in the cavalry.
I am the cavalry.
You know what? I'm almost tempted to recommend you guys this movie because while I think this was pretty pointless, there are moments of dialogue that you just can't miss out. I'm gonna keep Lex Luthor's lines in secret just so you can experience them for the first time. Also, I guess if you wanna be reminded of how much Superman means to Metropolis, this is the movie for you. For me, this was a 4 out of 10. Maybe if I was feeling more generous, I would give it a 5, but it's kind of hard to do that when most of the positive things I can say about the movie are just the most basic shit every movie has to accomplish. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye for now.